Whether it's building a business from scratch with your own two hands and wanting to maximize the financial impact of those sacrifices, or growing a great nest egg by being a dedicated and reliable worker for years, or choosing to live a life well within your means in order to accomplish a lifelong dream of retirement, the last thing you want is to go with the wrong financial advice after you've worked so hard to accumulate your assets. You've also probably spent most of your life putting others' needs ahead of your own, and now it's your turn. We can help. Gulf Coast Financial Advisors is a locally owned, independent, fee-based financial planning, investment management, and tax planning practice. We have offices in Fairhope and Orange Beach. We serve all of Baldwin County and the Gulf Coast. We also have an easy-to-understand fee-for-service model with no sales quotas, no proprietary products. Our ultimate responsibility is to our clients' goals and dreams. You can reach us at 251-327-2124 or find us online at gulfcoastfa.com. That's GULF, like the Gulf of Mexico, Coast, FA as in financialadvisor.com.
Whether you're dreaming of a retirement with sand between your toes and a cold one in your hand, hitting the road to chase the winds of adventure, or spending time with your grandchildren, this show is intended to help you get there. Welcome to Coasting in Retirement with your host, Josh Knoll. You've worked too hard throughout your career to spend your retirement worrying. So sit back and kick up your feet, because we've got lots of financial tips and tricks to share to help you get exactly where you want to be. Here's Josh.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome in. Welcome to Coasting in Retirement. That's right. Thanks for joining us today. We're excited to have you. Josh Knoll here, joined by the one and only Michelle Lee Melton.
Hello.
The cheese to my chong, the bill to my Ted. How you doing?
I'm busy.
Yes.
Big things happening, big things coming up.
Well, yeah, and listeners, in addition to the millions that Michelle makes from the show, she has a real-time, full-time job.
Yeah, and then some, and then I have side hustles too.
That's right, yes. All right,
it's just one of them.
Well, here we are. We're back again. Coastal College's recording studio, beautiful downtown Fairhope, ready to put together another great show for those of you tuning in. Listeners, Michelle and I are here today to discuss financial topics relevant to those of you in or near retirement, living your best life along our part of the Gulf Coast. Here's what we got in store for you. First segment, deep dive on our topic of the day. Second segment, about 20 minutes past the hour, fan favorite, Michelle with the news of the week.
Woo!
That's right. Third segment, roughly 40 minutes past the hour, Joshua's crystal ball and
big mouth.
That's right, big mouth. So buckle up. We got a lot to get to. Quick background on me for those of you new to the show. Again, my name is Josh Knoll. I'm a fee-based financial advisor. I hold my FINRA Series 65 securities license, and I'm the owner of Gulf Coast Financial Advisors. That's an independent investment management and financial planning firm. We have offices in Fairhope and Orange Beach. You can find more information on me and Gulf Coast Financial Advisors by visiting our website, gulfcoastfa.com, or feel free to give us a call anytime at 251-327-2124. Now, if you dismiss that, do not worry. We repeat our contact info several times.
Indeed, we do.
That's right. So, all right, Michelle, today we're going to be incorporating two of my favorite subjects.
Oh, my goodness.
Math and history.
Okay, math, boo. History, cool.
That's right, which means we're going to be heading straight to Nerdville. But
that's right. Nerds.
Yeah, I promise you and our listeners that even though we're going to Nerdville, this is going to be one of the more important episodes that we've done, maybe one of the most important ever.
What?
So I'll ask you both to hang in there through some of the more jargony terms. Today's episode is going to be about what is called sequence of returns risk. That's a term that may be unfamiliar to some of you listeners. And we're also going to tie in how this risk ties into what's called the 4% withdrawal rate rule. Now, that's a term that many of you in or near retirement probably have heard of. Why these two concepts are so important for those of you in or near retirement, as you're going to learn, if you don't put a plan in place or put something in your plan to handle sequence of returns risk, coupled with an appropriate withdrawal rate, it could deduct years, sometimes even decades, off the life of your investment portfolio. You got something to say, Michelle? That's not good, right?
It's terrible.
That's terrible.
Terrible.
And while it's important we're going to describe these concepts, I think what's more important, what matters even more, is what investors can actually do about it. So we'll end our segment with 3 ways to protect against these types of threats to your portfolio.
So sequence of returns risk doesn't have a sexy acronym.
I know, right?
You have to say it each time. Like everything else has got abbreviations.
And I think about the stuff you have on your dresses. What are those called? Sequins?
Sequins.
Yeah, I always think of sequins.
Now that makes it more fun and sexy for sure.
Sequence of returns.
Yes.
But it's sequence. So let's start with the definition. Michelle, you're going to recognize this from some of the seminars we've done.
Okay.
We specifically, we compare two brothers. Fictional brothers, right? So basically, here's the premise for sequence of returns risk. While the average return of your investment portfolio is very important for the longevity of your money in retirement, what has a greater impact on that longevity is the timing of those returns, particularly for those of you that retire into a down market or possibly even to a prolonged recession.
Boo.
So let me illustrate this. Now, as I mentioned, at our educational events, I'll often use a comparison chart of two fictional brothers that I use to demonstrate the mathematical impact of sequence or returns risk. But of course, you all are listening on the radio. You can't see a slide deck, so let me just describe it. We use two made-up brothers. We call them Steve and Bill. And what we do is we have both of them retire with $500,000 in their retirement account. Also, to keep our comparison apples to apples, we benchmark both of the brothers' portfolios using historical data from the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and we use a 6% withdrawal rate for both. So you got that $500,000, 6% withdrawal, Dow Jones. Okay, good? Mm-hmm. Now, here comes the key difference between the two brothers' situation. In our fictional example, Steve is a little bit older than Bill. Steve retires in 1990, and based on actual historical market returns, Dow Jones returns over the next 10 years, Steve finishes 1999 with about an average 16% total market return over that decade, and probably more exciting, he's got about $1.2 million left in his account, right? Not bad, right?
Right, and he's retired, so he can spend it.
That's right. So he started $500,000. He took 6% out and retired in 1990. And by then, when the millennium was flipping and we were all freaking out about Y2K,
right?
Steve's sitting there with $1.2
Zeros
million.
and ones.
Right. Okay. Now, younger brother Bill sees how his big brother is crushing in retirement.
Crushing it.
Yeah. So he decides to play follow the leader, and he retires with his own $500,000. Now, what Bill does is he retires 10 years exactly after Steve. So in 2000. And unfortunately for Bill, his timing is not great. From the year 2000 to 2009, the Dow is down 5 out of those 10 years. And here's the thing. Bill still manages to scratch out an average gain of about 5.5% for the decade. But because of how the decade played out, he enters 2010 with only $156,000 in his portfolio.
No, sir.
So same starting point,
I know.
$500,000, same withdrawal rate, same measuring system, Dow Jones, but radically different results. So how does Steve end up with over $1 million while Bill's portfolio is headed towards a wipeout? Well, folks, welcome to sequence of returns risk. That is an illustration of it. And here's the thing. As opposed to some of the end-of-the-world nonsense that gets thrown at many of you that have sat through an investment presentation or a seminar, this is actual cold, hard math. Again, the average rate of return matters over a period of time, because you would look at Steve made 16% over 10 years. That's great, right?
Yeah.
Bill made 5.5. That's not
It's not terrible,
right? But what matters more is the timing of those returns. And unfortunately for brother Bill, he retired at a terrible time. He had the dot-com bust, then he had 9/11, then he had the housing market crash in 2008. So even though the market rallied strongly in 3 of his 10 years in that decade, in fact, the Dow was up over 25% in 2003 alone. The damage had already been done. Bill's first 3 years of retirement featured returns of -6, then -7, then a -17 in 2002. And again, like we said, another huge hit in 2008. And that's all it took. 4 bad market years at what probably is the beginning of Bill's retirement knocked decades off the long. In fact, he's in real trouble if that's what he was counting on for retirement. $156,000.
You're going back to work.
That's right. All right. So for those of you that have more than $500,000 in your portfolio, say you got $1 million or $2 million or more, the math unfortunately bears out the same proportionally. We're going to reference an article later in the show that does a case study on $1 million portfolio and show you how that bears out. But the question comes is there anything Bill could have done differently in this scenario? Well, for one, he obviously could save more money, right? Or he could have delayed retirement.
Right.
And he could have delayed it until the market recovered, but waiting on a market recovery would involve him being able to see into the future. And unfortunately, not me, not Michelle, not any hotshot stock picker can predict with 100% accuracy when the stock market is going to cooperate with your retirement plan. So with that said, the one thing that Bill does have the most control over is his withdrawal rate. And for the next part of this segment, we're going to explain why this is...
Is it 4? Is it not 4?
That's right. We're going to explain why it's so important and why it ties into sequence or return. So we're going to pivot, all right? So we're going to do another definition. You got a question, Michelle?
No.
Well, you're about to. All right. So the retirement withdrawal rate, quite simply, it is the percentage of money you take out in withdrawals relative to your total account balance, or balances, if you will. So let's say you got $1 million in your retirement account or accounts, because you don't necessarily have to, we're not necessarily dealing with one account, but you take $50,000 out and withdraw the first year. 1 million divided by 50,000 or 50,000 divided by 1 million is
5%.
There you go. All right. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Let's say you take a 5% withdrawal in the first year and your portfolio has a total return of 6% in that first year. It means you've got a slight gain of 1%. That's good, right? That works, right? But you do remember what happened to Brother Bill.
Yes.
What if you take this 5% out the next year, but your portfolio loses 10%?
Uh-oh.
What if it loses 5 to 10% after that? You following me? Not only do you have to pay attention to your investment sequence of returns, you also have to pay attention to your withdrawal rate. A double whammy of a large withdrawal rate coupled with a down market can devastate a portfolio. And remember, we did that example with Brother Bill. 6% is not absurd. Right, we're about to, what Michelle mentioned, we're about to circle back to 4%, but 6% is not outlandish. What it does is all this leads us into the most well-known withdrawal rate study conducted in our industry. It was done by a financial advisor named William, and I'm going to butcher his last name. I think it's Benjamin.
I think it's William or something. Yeah.
William. I'm probably saying it wrong. I believe he has passed away. So rest in peace. And sorry if I'm butchering your name. But he published a study in 1994 that examined the effects of a 4% withdrawal rate on retirement accounts. Now, many of you listening, you're probably nodding your head. You've heard the 4% rule. Even Michelle's heard of the 4% rule.
I have.
Right. But before we dive into the nuts and guts of this rule, let me say this. There is a wide variety of concepts and attitudes about withdrawal rates. Even though many advisors, even me, I use 4% as kind of like a basic benchmark. Even the author, William Benjamin, would argue that depending on when somebody retires, 1990, 2000, 2010, 2020, sometimes they could have a higher withdrawal rate, 7%. He even illustrated a 13% in high interest rate environment. And sometimes they could have an even lower rate. There's been studies that have pointed to a 1.5% withdrawal rate, which means you better have a pretty affordable lifestyle and a whole lot of assets. That's right. And, of course, Lord help us with you annuity sales guys and gals that use inflated return of principal numbers in your illustrations, but we'll talk about that another day. The point is there is a lot of debate around this issue. So our Steve and Bill comparison, we didn't get into the messy details of inflation and interest rates. We didn't even factor in Social Security. So what we're going to do with our withdrawal rate, we're going to introduce back in inflation, and we're going to add the market return combined with inflation. We're going to call that real return.
Okay.
And then we're going to discuss what is considered a quote-unquote safe withdrawal rate that can withstand any sequence of returns risk using real returns numbers, right?
Okay.
All right. So, Michelle, this is where history comes into play.
All right. Finally.
Yes, right. And I'm excited. So, listeners, remember again, William Benjamin's study was done in 1994. That's well before the dot-com crash. Michelle was graduating high school.
That's right.
I was first year of college. This is before 9/11. This is before the housing market crashes, before
the
COVID.
vid.
All of it, right?
Yep.
So what he did is his analysis included and highlighted the 3 worst stock market periods in the 1900s. He also used astronomy to describe these time periods, which Michelle found fun. Those time periods in this study were 1929 to 1931. That's what he called the Little Dipper, and that marked the beginning of the Great Depression. 1937 to 1941, he called that the Big Dipper, and that marks the tail end of the Great Depression. And then finally, it's what he called the Big Bang, which was the time period right before Michelle and I were born, 1973 to 1974. Got it? So that's our 3 time periods we're talking about. Okay. Now, on the study, what he did is he added the overall loss of the stock market during these time periods and the average inflation rates to get, again, the real return.
For real.
That's right. Because remember, adding inflation is important. Savvy listeners already picked up on this because when you're talking about, like we just called the stock market crash at the beginning of the Great Depression, we called it the Little Dipper,
right?
Not the Big Dipper, the Big Bang,
or the crash.
And savvy listeners are wondering why we're saying that. Well, here's why. If you add in inflation, the actual worst overall portfolio performance during this time period would have been 1973 to 1974, which surprised me.
Yeah, me too.
Stock market was down 37%.
Wow.
Inflation was 22%.
Woo!
You add those two numbers together, that is a negative 59% real return. So, Michelle, I got a question for you. We got the Cold War. Gas lines, all this crap. I mean,
who wants to have babies?
And yet I'm 1975 vintage, and you're 1976. What was our parent? Were things looking up? But we'll have to ask our parents sometime. I mean, was there a baby bust during 1973, 74? You think there would be?
You would think. There is one now.
All right, back to our point. So the stock market actually crashed the deepest during 1929, negative 61%. But during that time period, and for the handful of you that were still alive, which you'd be, in your 90s? Yeah. If you're listening, there was actual deflation in the economy. Prices fell by 15%. Remember, 1970s, prices increased by 22%. Early 1930s, prices fell by 15%. So the real return was a negative 45%, which is bad enough. The time period at the end of the Great Depression, what he calls the Big Dipper, it came in at a negative 44% real return. The point is, all of this is history now. And while history does not repeat itself, it can rhyme.
It can repeat itself.
It can repeat.
If we don't learn things from it, it does.
It can definitely rhyme.
Yeah.
So any of you all that had investments in 2000, 2001, or 2008, or even here recently, spring of 2020, you know how unnerving it can be to see your accounts plummet.
Just don't look at it.
Especially when it happens almost overnight, even if it's just numbers on a screen or on a piece of paper. So the most important takeaway from this history lesson is not to remember the exact specific numbers. What it is that
good.
Yeah, right. It's to show that Willem Benjamin was able to show, here we stitch it all back together, how a 4% withdrawal rate, even during these three terrible market performances, but again, particularly in 1973 when inflation was high and the market was down, how a 4% withdrawal rate allowed for 30 years or more of portfolio longevity, even in these three extreme examples. You got that?
Got it.
Now, what that means is he ran multiple mathematical scenarios during the worst stock market periods of the 1900s, and in every instance, the 4% withdrawal rate demonstrated the ability to keep the portfolio intact for at least 30 years. Does this mean that the 4% withdrawal rate will always work? Of course not.
No.
Right. Listen, math is math, but it's hard to incorporate the full human effect into these studies. We're going to discuss in greater detail some of the things we can do now that's a little bit more sophisticated than what could be done in 1994. But what it does mean is that we have some main takeaways from this as we wrap up this segment. 1, sequence of returns risk is a real relevant threat to the longevity of your portfolio. I mean, again, 1990.
Watch out for those sequins.
Watch out for those sequins. They'll pop off. Number 2, a 4% withdrawal rate has been mathematically proven to survive the worst stock markets, at least the worst ones in the 1900s. But that doesn't mean that you should just set it and forget it. Plus, depending on the size of your nest egg, 4% withdrawal may leave you living like a pauper.
No.
Right? Michelle refuses to do that.
Not interested.
Not interested. They're right. Number 3, a financial planning software that we use at Gulf Coast Financial Advisors can help you determine not only your withdrawal rate, 2%, 3%, 4%, 10%, whatever. But just as important, it can help determine your withdrawal strategy. That is, which accounts, and more specifically, which assets are being used to generate income to determine the withdrawal rate. And then finally, a good financial plan is going to help you pick the type of assets you should own in retirement to generate the income and get the longevity that you desire. So, sequence of returns risk, withdrawal rates, which accounts to withdraw from, what type of assets to own. That's a lot, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. These are all things we address, fortunately. We address all this, our financial planning process at Gulf Coast Financial Advisors. And we approach it Our financial and retirement planning, we approach it with the goal of educating and enlightening our clients. There's never any pressure to make any quick decisions or do business with us until you're totally comfortable. Because as you can see, when you actually do a true quote unquote comprehensive financial plan, there's a lot of detail. There's a lot to say. So if you're sitting with somebody that's pressing you to make a decision about the rest of your life and make it in the first meeting in less than an hour.
Also not interested in that.
It's not good, right? So this stuff takes time. If you want to set up an appointment to have that conversation, you can do it by calling us 251-327-2124, or you can reach us through our website. It's gulfcoastfa.com. Gulf like the Gulf of Mexico, Coast as in the show title, FA as in financial advisor. On our site, you can send us a direct message, or you can click on the blue button in the upper right-hand corner. That'll set up a 15-minute introductory phone call on my calendar. Or you can do all three.
Boom, boom, boom.
That's right. All right. Very good. Nice work.
Okay.
On we go.
Okay.
All right, folks, coming up next,
Woo.
There's always a lot going on in the world, particularly the world of finance, investments, and money. Every week, Michelle and I scour what she calls the interwebs for helpful financial articles related to our topic of the day, especially articles that pertain to those of you in or near retirement. So why don't you join us after the break to hear Michelle and I discuss this week's relevant headlines in our Michelle with the News of the Week segment. Stay tuned.
Hi, Michelle here. If you're looking to inflation-proof your retirement and are ready to take that next step, but don't want to wait for one of those upcoming seminars, just give the advisors at Gulf Coast Financial Advisors a call today and schedule your no-obligation in-person review with Josh and his team. Maybe it's time for that second opinion. Make sure to call 251-333-5151 or visit us on the web at gulfcoastfa.com. That's GULFCOASTFA as in financialadvisors.com.
Advisory services offered through Prime Capital Investment Advisors, LLC, a federally registered investment advisor. PCIA 6201 College Boulevard, Suite 150, Overland Park, Kansas 66211. PCIA doing business as Prime Capital Wealth Management and Qualified Plan Advisors. PCIA and Gulf Coast Financial Advisors are not affiliated.
Whether it's building a business from scratch with your own two hands and wanting to maximize the financial impact of those sacrifices, or growing a great nest egg by being a dedicated and reliable worker for years, or choosing to live a life well within your means in order to accomplish a lifelong dream of retirement, the last thing you want is to go with the wrong financial advice after you've worked so hard to accumulate your assets. You've also probably spent most of your life putting others' needs ahead of your own, and now it's your turn. We can help. Gulf Coast Financial Advisors is a locally owned, independent, fee-based financial planning, investment management, and tax planning practice. We have offices in Fairhope and Orange Beach. We serve all of Baldwin County and the Gulf Coast. We also have an easy-to-understand fee-for-service model with no sales quotas, no proprietary products. Our ultimate responsibility is to our clients' goals and dreams. You can reach us at 251-327-2124 or find us online at gulfcoastfa.com. That's GULF like the Gulf of Mexico, Coast, FA as in financialadvisor.com. Welcome back to Coasting Retirement. Your host Josh Knoll here. So as we discussed before the break, every week Michelle and I scour the interwebs for helpful financial articles related to our topic of the day, especially articles that pertain to those of you in or near retirement. Our job is to help you all understand how these headlines impact you, especially when it comes to your money. So also note, we also include the article links on our show transcript. You can find that on our website, gulfcoastfa.com. We put the show up on the website the Monday after the show airs on FM Talk 106.5 on Sunday. Just look under the podcast tab, so you'll have all the links to these articles we're about to reference. Without further ado, here's Michelle with the news of the week.
All right, Josh, let's kick it off with an article from Investment News titled "The 4% Rule is Back, but It's Not Really a Rule." Then what is it? I don't know. And an exception. Anyway, the article references a recent Morningstar study that seems to agree with Bill Bingen's 1994 study showing that 4% is the highest safe starting withdrawal rate for retirees, given that there is a 90% probability that 90% of investors, okay.
Right.
The probability so still have money left in their portfolios after 30 years, assuming an initial allocation to equities of 20 to 40%. However, some financial advisors pushed back on this conclusion, with one even calling this advice simple and dangerous for retirees. I know we have discussed withdrawal rates in the first segment, but we didn't have time for you to expound on your financial planning process. So please fill us in on how to help your clients determine a sustainable withdrawal rate.
All right, very
So
good.
they don't go broke.
Well, and it's good. Yeah, I like, the one way to get quoted in an article, just use the word dangerous. Nice work, advisor there.
Simple and dangerous.
Simple and dangerous. So here's the thing. That advisor that's saying that if you oversimplify the withdrawal rate, it can be dangerous, that's an accurate statement. I mean, you got to remember, we're talking about people's life savings here, so every precaution should be taken, right? What I think it takes, or how we approach it is, it takes common sense combined with software that actually lets you consider as many different factors as possible. The common sense part, that's realizing that nothing will be exactly the same year to year in retirement. I mean, was everything the same year to year when you were working, right?
Yeah, right.
I mean, not inflation, not market returns, not your spending, not your expenses, not your kids, not your grandkids. Everything's going to change year to year. It's it's life for all of us, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I will say most people will settle into a lifestyle, and they will have a certain, kind of call it small deviation of spending from that lifestyle. So knowing that number is helpful. But at the end of the day, our approach is twofold. First, we're going to talk to our clients often, especially those of you entering near retirement. We're going to help you determine your actual budget, your actual spending. We're going to keep the notes in our files updated. We're going to keep our financial planning software updated and caught up. And then second, we're going to tailor each retiree strategy to their specific situation. Because remember, there's no one size fits all strategy. I mean, in just this article alone, Michelle, one advisor says closed-ended funds are the magic pill, right?
That's right.
Yeah, another advisor
had to look that up.
Right. And we could do a whole disclaimer on closed-ended funds. That's not just a buy it and, sight unseen kind of thing. Another advisor says just buy an annuity and everything will be fine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so I can see why people can get confused. My recommendation for those of you in or near retirement is to find a fee-based or fee-only advisor, whether that's us at Gulf Coast Financial Advisors or not. But make sure they have access to all of the retirement planning tools and they understand their financial planning software. And for the love of Pete, try to avoid people that say, one product will solve all your, like a closed-ended funds. Yeah, there's magic. Avoid those people. And two, avoid folks with proprietary products to sell. It's one of the reasons we advocate for us and our fellow independent advisors. What your locally owned advisor may lack in name brand recognition, they'll more than make up with a fiduciary-based financial plan tailored to your specific situation. And if you want to have that conversation, 251-327-2124. Very good. What's next?
All right. Next up is our good buddy, old Chuck Schwab, with a recent article titled Timing Matters, Understanding Sequence of Returns Risk. This article lays out a similar case study to our brother Steve and Bill example, this time using $1 million portfolio and a 5% withdrawal rate as the baseline, reaffirming just how devastating it can be to retire into a down market. Boo hiss.
Right.
This article stresses how important it is to keep a reserve, possibly even cash you can tap into to avoid selling investments in a down market. Is that the cash in my mattress type situation?
Yes, that is right.
Can be. All right. And lastly, this article talks about scaling back the horror in retirement if you get hit with sequence of returns and don't have a plan to handle it. Gross. So I don't want to spend less in retirement. I always want to spend more and more and more. But anyway, what can investors do to avoid having to adjust their lifestyle down in retirement?
Well, so this comes back to common sense. So a comprehensive financial plan is just that, comprehensive. Mm-hmm. And there can be a lot of moving parts and a lot of data to comprehend. But for the majority of folks looking to retirement or in retirement, really their number one concern, keep the thing. Their number one concern is, do I have enough money to last the rest of my life at a lifestyle that I can enjoy? Right?
And do a tour around the world.
That would be number 2 or 3 down the list, but you get the idea. Keep the thing. So one of the first things we're going to do at Gulf Coast Financial Advisors is do an income solve. Right? That is, how can we take the bucket of assets that you, the investor, bring to the table, whether it's your 401k, your IRAs, your Social Security, your rental properties, your pensions, whatever, mattress, cash in the mattress in Michelle's case, and within reason, develop a level of income that serves your needs, your basic needs for a prolonged period. And guess what? This sounds harsh, but if we can't find the source of this needed income versus your expenses, then maybe you're not ready to retire, right? Because this is a multi-part dance.
Sadly, I am not ready to retire.
Yeah.
Not financially, anyway.
I mean, if your withdrawal rate is 10 to 15%,
I don't want to do an income solve on me right now.
Well, the income solve, it's going to tie into your greater financial plan. And really what it's meant to be is the heartbeat of the plan. We want that thing beating strong and steady for as many years as possible. So we're going to do things to protect it as much as we can. That could include maybe having significant cash on hand. That could maybe include possibly delaying Social Security because that's going to dramatically increase your total benefit. These are things that are going to be part of the conversation. However the plan comes out, it will be adapted to your needs and wants, because remember, our goal isn't to help you attain a retirement you settle for. Our goal is to help you attain a retirement you dream of.
Okay, so I giggled a little bit because I think the thing you say, I like your plan.
We can't say that.
I know, but that's my income plan.
I like your plan, but it's not great.
Terrible.
Let's try my plan.
Okay.
That's good. 251-327-2124. What's next?
Okay, for this next article, you totally warned me ahead of time that this was not really an article. But we're including in our headlines of the week it's absolutely self-serving.
100%.
So
yes.
At least you own it. So with that disclaimer, I present to you a section on a site called Right Capital, and that's with an R, people, not with a W, titled Model Dynamic Retirement Spending with Ease, which does have a nice title. I mean, I like dynamic and ease together. That sounds better than simple and dangerous.
Well done. AI-generated title, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Probably.
Right.
Okay. So I do know that you use Right Capital with an R as your financial planning software, and based on the withdrawal rate discussion we had in the opening segment, I recognized a lot of the terms on this article and in this article. But I think at the end of the day, this is a way for you to toot your own horn. So have at it.
Well, yeah, I'm guilty as charged. Thank you for including it. So this particular site, it's not really an article, it's more of a help desk thing, but it's a great reference for those of you listening that are truly serious about your financial plan in retirement. Not that you're stressed or you're fearful about your plan, but you're wanting to actually put in some time to find the right person to help you, to work with you alongside as a team, so you can maximize in retirement all of the hard work you put in just to get there, right? Mm-hmm. So back to Right Capital. Yes, that's a financial planning software we use at Gulf Coast Financial Advisors. I love it. Not that the other ones are not very good as well, but Right Capital and I just clicked. So I am familiar with most established financial planning softwares. And to be fair, just like those, Right Capital is going to have options to project inflation-adjusted numbers. It can do Monte Carlo projections. What is a Monte Carlo?
We talked about that.
Yeah,
it's not the casino in France.
It is not, right? It's not the car either. What it is the likelihood of success if we electronically run your financial plan through thousands of scenarios. Do you have a 70% chance of success, 80%? There's certain numbers there we're looking for where we can make tweaks and get the success ratio higher. But really what I think is it's the ease of use that Right Capital gives me as a planner. I can add things such as guardrails. I can add things easily such as floors and ceilings to the plan. And I can do what
Are you building a house? What's happening?
That's right. It's a financial planning house. It also lets me do what's called a retirement spending smile analysis. And
we learned about that too.
We did. That's not Michelle gleefully throwing cash at shoes in retirement.
Oh, that is a dream.
But what it does, it shows how retirees tend to spend more at the very beginning and the very end of retirement. And it's a great tool to add into all this. These are all things we can do our financial planning process. I know I sound like a giant nerd talking about this, but it is fun to figure these things out, especially when someone comes to the table, they've done a good job, they've worked hard, they've put money away, they got sources of income, they have a lifestyle they can afford, and we can put it all together and look at what, how can we make this thing last the rest of your life? And for a lot of people, how do we make it last? How do you leave a legacy? It's cool. I like it. We can do it. All right. Very good. We got time for one more?
Yes, we have a last one.
Okay.
So we've discussed sequence of returns risk and withdrawal rates today, but my takeaway is that the real point of all this is to help people not outlive their money.
That's
Correct?
Right. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
yes.
that
That sounds like a drag,
thing.
right? And I know you plan on working until you drop, but I do not. And given that I have longevity in my family, especially on the Canadian side,
Yay.
they do grow old. I found a Forbes article that suits me just fine. How to plan for a longer retirement.
There you go.
Win the lottery, step 1. So
I like your plan,
yeah.
except it
It's
sucks.
terrible.
Let's try this other
Okay.
plan.
This article has a lot of common sense advice that we've often discussed on the show, such as delaying Social Security or working part-time in retirement even. But I found something new that I don't recall us talking about before, something the article calls longevity insurance and references something called a QLAC.
That's right. Very good on the
Something
explanation, on the
new.
pronunciation. QLAC.
And it's a Qualified Longevity Annuity Contract.
That's right. Can I explain more?
Please do.
Yeah, yes. Okay. So I agree with you. This article does a good job. A lot of common sense advice for retirees. It's things that we talk about often on this show, such as possibly working part-time in retirement or delaying Social Security, of course, if you can. Plus, it also gives some updated life expectancy figures. Our last episode, we talked about how apparently everybody in 1983 just dropped dead after retirement when we were babies. I thought people were living longer then, but it's really radically changed since we were kids.
Yeah.
It's kind of surprising.
People used to have heart attacks at work all the time. I mean, 50.
Everybody smoked all the time.
They smoked, and there's probably a lot of preservatives that aren't allowed anymore, but there's still a lot.
Well, I find life expectancy figures fascinating for some reason. But back to your question, Michelle. So I'll admit, I actually hadn't thought about a QLAC for a couple of years, so this was a good jog
I've
for my
never
memory.
thought about one.
Right. So here's the thing. I don't particularly care for how the author gave it a cute name of longevity insurance. I'm going to go on a little side tangent here. Anytime an insurance product is called by anything other than its true name, it's a sales gimmick. And
It's a deferred annuity.
I'm looking at you. Yes, it's a deferred annuity, right? But the basics of a QLAC are solid. So QLAC stands for, like Michelle said, Qualified Longevity Annuity Contract. And what it does is it allows retirees to take no more than 25% or up to $200,000 of their qualified plan assets and invest it in a deferred income annuity. All right.
Okay.
This deferred income annuity, or DIA, it has to start paying out income no later than age 85. You can turn it on before then. So the primary benefit, or at least the primary immediate benefit of that, is that the chunk of money that you remove from your qualified accounts, say you take $200,000 out of your rollover IRA, that $200,000 is now not part of your RMD calculation.
Okay.
Okay. So what does that mean? It means QLACs can be a useful tool for those folks that don't need to take much out of their retirement accounts because they have other sources of income or they have very low expenses. So the point is, if you're listening and this describes you, if your RMD, you don't really need it and you would like to maybe push some of it off down the road, and particularly if you've got a little bit of longevity and you'd like to walk into age 85 with another secondary source of income, then maybe a QLAC's worth having a conversation about. If it is, you can give us a call, 251-327-2124, and we can discuss your individual situation further. Is that it?
That's all.
Okay, very good. Well, great job as always with the headlines. These are always important pieces of information that we feel impacts those of you in or near retirement. Now, listeners, if you have questions around the topics in our headlines of the week, or if you just have questions related to your investment strategy or financial plan, why don't you give us a call? Again, that number is 251-327-2124. You can set up a conversation, you can set up an appointment, or you can reach out to us through our website. You can send a message to the website, gulfcoastfa.com. That's Gulf like the Gulf of Mexico, Coast like the show title, FA as in financial advisor.com, or you can put a 15-minute conversation on my calendar, upper right-hand corner, blue button. All right, folks, coming up next, Josh's crystal ball and big mouth. What have been some of my predictions? Have I been right? Was I ever wrong? How wrong? Have I ever been wrong?
Yes.
I don't know about that. Well, what do I think is going to affect investors in the near future, possibly even the long-term future? We get to talk about all of these things, plus poke a little fun at my big mouth. Stay tuned. Whether it's building a business from scratch with your own two hands and wanting to maximize the financial impact of those sacrifices, are growing a great nest egg by being a dedicated and reliable worker for years, or choosing to live a life well within your means in order to accomplish a lifelong dream of retirement, the last thing you want is to go with the wrong financial advice after you've worked so hard to accumulate your assets. You've also probably spent most of your life putting others' needs ahead of your own, and now it's your turn. We can help. Gulf Coast Financial Advisors is a locally owned, independent, fee-based financial planning, investment management, and tax planning practice. We have offices in Fairhope and Orange Beach. We serve all of Baldwin County and the Gulf Coast. We also have an easy-to-understand fee-for-service model with no sales quotas, no proprietary products. Our ultimate responsibility is to our clients' goals and dreams. You can reach us at 251-327-2124 or find us online at gulfcoastfa.com. That's Gulf, like the Gulf of Mexico, Coast, FA as in financialadvisor.com.
Hi, Michelle here. If you're looking to inflation-proof your retirement and are ready to take that next step but don't want to wait for one of those upcoming seminars, just give the advisors at Gulf Coast Financial Advisors a call today and schedule your no-obligation in-person review with Josh and his team. Maybe it's time for that second opinion. Make sure to call 251-333-5151 or visit us on the web at gulfcoastfa.com. That's GULFCOASTFA as in financialadvisors.com.
Advisory services offered through Prime Capital Investment Advisors, LLC, a federally registered investment advisor. PCIA 6201 College Boulevard, Suite 150, Overland Park, Kansas 66211. PCIA doing business as Prime Capital Wealth Management and Qualified Plan Advisors. PCIA and Gulf Coast Financial Advisors are not affiliated.
Welcome back. Your host, Josh Knoll here, alongside co-host Michelle. So I am opinionated. I have strong opinions at times. I would say a radio show host that isn't probably wouldn't be very interesting to listen to, right?
Right. Lame sauce.
That's right. And I'm paid in my profession to offer professional guidance and my opinions to my clients. Otherwise, again, what use would I be? Now, sometimes I feel so strongly about something that I talk about it publicly on the various podcasts and radio shows that I've had. Sometimes I'll even make some predictions. And while I feel like I'm usually proved right because I'm fairly skeptical about my industry, there are times where I definitely swing and miss. So if you want to hear me eat a little crow, let's get at it with Joshua's crystal ball and big mouth. What we got first?
As someone with extensive real estate and construction experience, you've often said that you get the appeal of house flipping or finding passive income deals, especially to retirees that now have more time on their hands and are looking to generate extra income. You've also stated that you understand the appeal of the quote-unquote free educational seminar that is supposed to educate regular people on how to find, buy, and flip real estate. But you draw the line on free seminars that lead into a paid service where the wannabe investor pays thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars to learn the, quote, secrets, unquote, of making easy money in real estate.
Right.
Heard that before.
Yep.
Okay. Well, according to the interwebs, these seminars are still popular. Can you believe it?
I can't.
I know. In fact, I found one about tax liens being held at the Renaissance Hotel next month in
Mobile,
right. Alabama, across the bay.
Right.
So you can go to Eventbrite and check it out. All right. So what's your big mouth got to say about retirees and real estate investing seminars?
Well, I think you're bringing this up because you and I were recently watching one of my favorite shows.
Yes.
It's called The Deed. D-E-E-D.
We watched the one in New Orleans, not Chicago.
Right. And the Chicago one, I think, only went one season. But the one that we like, it went 2 seasons. It's about a guy in New Orleans. His name is Sidney Torres. He's a real estate developer. He owns a trash collection business.
Yeah, waste management.
He does a lot of stuff. The premise of the show is that Sidney will come in and he'll save the bacon of less experienced real estate flippers. And in one episode, and I think this is why you brought it up, the couple had spent $35,000 on a real estate seminar or house flipping like we just described.
Yeah. And they didn't have day jobs.
And they didn't have, and they put it on their credit card.
Yeah.
So I guess the first note, for those of you wanting to learn more about remodeling, construction, and house flipping, I guess the first note is I highly recommend The Deed because I think you would learn something from that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It only aired for 2 seasons, but you can find both on Peacock.
And Sidney's still roaming around New Orleans.
He's still roaming around. Yeah, everybody knows blah, blah, blah.
That's right.
Yeah, so anyway, all right, so we'll quit doing a commercial for The Deed here. Let's get back to the seminars.
Yes.
Yeah, here's the bottom line. Folks, always remember this. When someone says they have the secret sauce for something, whether it's real estate or investments or whatever, the first question out of your mouth needs to be, if this is such a powerful formula, why in the world are you sharing it with me And why do you need my money when you should be making money hand over fist, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Excellent point.
Now, sometimes when people have investment ideas, they legitimately need funding. That's not always. But what you got to remember is, yes, you can learn things about real estate, these seminars. But just like the people that sell timeshares, more often than not, there's going to be a hard sell pitch at the end of the seminar. And unfortunately, these people tend to be pretty good at their jobs, right? They're good at this.
Yeah.
They're better at selling you services than they are at doing real estate.
Yeah,
I can tell you that right now. One of them almost talked to one of my clients, and he's a pretty smart guy. They almost talked him into making real estate investments using his credit card. I'm like, what in the world? So listen. If you want to learn about real estate and retirement from somebody that I built and or remodeled somewhere around 40 houses, I bought and sold real estate for years. I'm not telling you I know everything, but I know more than the average bear, if you will. If you want to learn about real estate and retirement, do this instead of the seminar. Or if you go to the seminar, keep your wallet in your pocket. Here's what you do. Get your real estate broker's license or sales agent license. Get your local market in your blood. Get to know this stuff. Know MLS. Know all this. Get to know the people making ethical deals. Get to know the contractors they're using to make ethical deals. Build up your cash reserves. Then when you have the knowledge and you have the money, and most importantly, you've got some experience and some level of network connections, then you flip the switch. Then you can actually look at doing something and not getting burned. Don't do it because some 20-something-year-old hotshot with a fancy watch told you how cool it was to use other people's money to do house flipping. That's a great way to go bankrupt quick, I'm telling you. And it's also a great way to get bled dry and put $35,000 on your credit card. Again, these people are good. And I'm not saying they're all unethical. I don't mean to cash a wide thing. But again, those of you that do these things and you're listening to the show, if you're that good at it, keep your mouth shut and just get to work, right? Fair?
Yes.
Sydney Torres is not doing seminars. Do a TV show.
Well, what's the quote? Is like, if you can't do, teach.
If you can't do, teach. That's fair. Yeah, that's good. All right. What's next?
Okay. Next up, over a year ago, we cautioned investors to be wary of real estate investment trust, or REITs, that were heavily concentrated in commercial real estate. The thinking was that higher interest rates combined with the lingering work-from-home effect would make many commercial and office-type investments unprofitable. Well, according to a recent article from Fox Business, roughly $929 billion
right.
worth of commercial real estate loans are set to mature this year, leaving borrowers with little choice but to refinance with, guess what? Significantly higher interest rates or sell their properties at a steep loss. Right. Ruh-roh. This situation is also having downward pressure on bank stocks. So do you think this will have a spillover effect that retail investors in or near retirement need to be overly concerned about?
Yeah, so we call this segment My Crystal Ball and Big Mouth. And for this one, I was very right on this. And I do think it's an issue that is bubbling beneath the surface.
Is it percolating?
It's percolating, and I think it could possibly explode to some degree later this year, particularly among regional banks.
Bears. Yeah.
I mean, I am not a smart man, but even I know $929 billion is almost $1 trillion, right?
Yes.
Right. Now, listen, folks, I'm not saying there's, we've got another Silicon Bank or Signature Bank, little mini systematic bank failure situation heading our way. But what I am saying is that investors need to pay attention to this particular thing. Here's what you got to know for those of y'all that don't pay attention to this stuff like I do, because I'm a giant nerd. Many property developers, big-time property developers, were in small time, all property developers, they were crossing their fingers that the Fed was going to start reducing interest rates by now, already beyond the, but here's the thing. We've got recent high inflation or higher inflation numbers. We got unemployment numbers that just came in that day of reducing interest rates. It just got pushed further down the road. Probably going to happen, but it's not going to be to the speed that some of these guys need, because it would probably amaze most of you everyday investors just how close to the line that these guys and sometimes gals push these deals. They set a lot of these real estate deals up where they can just walk away from a property and not put their mothership in danger. And with that, then what happens is there's a potential domino effect that could come into effect, and that puts so much pressure on the banking system. Again, the regional banks, because what the banking system has got to figure out is how can they find a way to refinance this nearly $1 trillion of loans, of commercial loans, and undoubtedly those loans are at a much lower interest rate than the current offerings. It's not a good situation, but the bottom line is, as it trickles down to you individual investors, the ones that are listening to this show, it's probably long past time to take a look at your real estate holdings, and that's something we can do. We can definitely help, not just with what we do professionally, but with the experience that I have in the past. 251-327-2124. We got time for one more?
We've got to make this one quick because we are running out of time.
We are short on time, I thought, yeah.
On this show, late last year, you predicted that both the stock market and cryptocurrency would have a tough beginning to 2024. Yet all of the major stock market indexes are up this year. The price of Bitcoin has actually increased dramatically, along with a rising tide across most of the crypto market. So you were obviously wrong in your prediction. Care to explain why your crystal ball was so off?
So it's
cloudy.
Yeah. So whereas I think I was pretty accurate with what's going on with commercial real estate, because again, those guys, they tend to push the margin so thin that there's just not much margin of error. Now, on this, when it comes to the stock market and crypto, not necessarily related, but once again, with the stock market, it's just a reminder that when it comes to the actual stock market, there is a reason I'm not a day trader or a market timer. I am a long-term financial planner.
You would spontaneously combust if you did that. You'd go crazy.
I mean, looking at 3 computer screens all day, forget it. And then to be fair, Michelle, when it comes to crypto, I will admit defeat for now.
For now?
But I will say this.
Okay. Is this another prediction?
It is. I think when all of this is said and done, I think when it comes to crypto, we are witnessing the greatest wash sale, artificial price inflation, financial musical chair operation in the history of mankind.
Wow.
Time will tell.
Big words.
These are big words. I stand firm on this. Time will tell. All right, well, listeners, I hope you enjoyed a peek behind the curtain of how I form my opinions and my predictions, and more importantly, that I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong, which isn't very often, but still. Now, to our listeners that have more questions about the various investments and topics we discuss, we invite you to reach out to us. Again, call us anytime. You can call us on Sunday, 251. Hey, Michelle, I got 2 calls Sunday. I meant to tell you that. Last Sunday. It was pretty cool.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Right on.
They were surprised. As Michelle knows, I answer the phone. I give out a direct...
She does actually do that, people.
I give out a direct number for this because I want to know if the radio show is reaching people, and it is. That number is 251-327-2124. One guy told me he actually even recognized my voice, which was very flattering.
Oh, that is flattering.
Right, but most of them ask about you. Now, you can also call us and you make an appointment on our website. So, folks, that's it for us here this week on Coaster Retirement. Huge thank you to my lovely co-host, Michelle Lee Melton.
Welcome.
Thank you to our awesome radio station. That's FM Talk 106.5 out of Mobile. Many thanks to the provider of our show music. That's local band Sloth Racer. Huge thank you to our show producer, Mr. Chazare Gray. And as always, my sincere appreciation for all of you out there that have been listening and joining us on this journey. We would love to be a part of your journey as well. Till we talk again next Sunday, have a wonderful and productive week. This has been Coasting in Retirement with Josh Knoll.
Advisory services offered through Prime Capital Investment Advisors, LLC, a federally registered investment advisor. Prime Capital Investment Advisors, LLC, 6201 College Boulevard, 7th floor, Overland Park, Kansas, 66211. Prime Capital Investment Advisors, LLC, doing business as Prime Capital Wealth Management and Qualified Plan Advisors and Gulf Coast Financial Advisors are not affiliated. Gulf Coast Financial Advisors, Prime Capital Investment Advisors, Prime Capital Wealth Management, and Qualified Plan Advisors do not provide tax, legal, or accounting advice. This content has been prepared for informational purposes only and is not intended to provide and should not be relied on for tax, legal, or accounting advice. The information provided herein is not a complete analysis of every material fact regarding any strategy. It is intended only to provide insight into the opinions of the author. All information presented is for educational purposes only and is not an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any securities. Content offers commentary and generalized research, not personalized investment advice, and is for informational purposes only and does not constitute a complete description of our investment services or performance. All investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Be sure to first consult with a qualified legal professional and/or tax professional before implementing any strategy discussed here.
Whether it's building a business from scratch with your own 2 hands and wanting to maximize the financial impact of those sacrifices, or growing a great nest egg by being a dedicated and reliable worker for years, or choosing to live a life well within your means in order to accomplish a lifelong dream of retirement, the last thing you want is to go with the wrong financial advice after you've worked so hard to accumulate your assets. You've also probably spent most of your life putting others' needs ahead of your own, and now it's your turn. We can help. Gulf Coast Financial Advisors is a locally owned, independent, fee-based financial planning, investment management, and tax planning practice. We have offices in Fairhope and Orange Beach. We serve all of Baldwin County and the Gulf Coast. We also have an easy-to-understand fee-for-service model with no sales quotas, no proprietary products. Our ultimate responsibility is to our clients' goals and dreams. You can reach us at 251-327-2124 or find us online at gulfcoastfa.com. That's GULF like the Gulf of Mexico, Coast, FA as in financialadvisor.com.